Nearly a decade ago, the imagination of then 9-year-old Shamus Evans and the determination of his dad, Shaun, captured the attention of the country. The father-son tandem from Galway completed their run across America with a mission to spread inclusion.
All I knew was that Shamus wanted to run across America, and that was my goal every day, to get him one step closer to that.
Welcome to A Place of Yes. I'm your host, Heather Strader, a podcast about how I moved through my darkest hour. And all I can say is I dug deep, figured out where I was and where I wanted to be. And for me, the answer was in a place of yes. Welcome to the show. I am super excited today. We're doing something a little different on A Place of Yes. We have Shaun Evans and Shamus Evans. I'm excited because this is the first time that we have had our Jake's Help from Heaven actual recipient here. This has been a lot of conversations with moms mostly. And it's great to talk to a dad too. Really the only dad I think we've had on is Brian, and I have to drag him in. But so thank you guys for being here. And thank you, Shamus, for being here. I know high school seniors don't always want to do things like this, so I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you so much for having us. I mean, we're happy to have any opportunity to share our story and our journey.
No, absolutely. So let's just get started right away. I will say, we have worked together through Jake's Help from Heaven. And for those who are listening who don't know what Jake's Help from Heaven is, it's the organization that my husband and I started after the passing of our son, Jake. He died in 2010 unexpectedly, but had a pretty complex medical life. We, in those days following, really wanted to use kind of what we learned from his strength and resilience and be able to give back to families like ours. It means a lot that we've been able to work with you in Jake's memory.
Oh, and we're so grateful for the support that you've given us over the years on several different occasions. So thank you.
No, absolutely. You are very welcome. I am just obsessed with what you guys did in Boston. So I'm going to do something a little different and just go right to that, if that's all right with you guys.
Yeah, it's fresh in our minds.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the whole thing.
I'm a runner. Shamus is a rider-athlete, so I push Shamus in a special running chair, and we run races together. Recently, we happened to have run the Boston Marathon, which is the pinnacle of a lot of people's running careers. To get into Boston, there's a couple requirements. One is you have to run a qualifying time. Two is you have to be 18. So Shamus and I have been running marathons together for years, but he never met the 18-year-old criteria.
Oh, you have to be 18 too.
Everybody
okay.
Everybody that participates in the race has to be 18.
Okay.
That's why we kind of had Boston 2024 marked on our calendar for the past decade plus.
That's incredible. I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah. So
awesome.
every time Shamus and I have run a marathon together, almost every time we've hit the qualifying standard. But in the race that actually got us into Boston this April was Sackett's Harbor, New York. We ran a marathon there Labor Day weekend. And at that marathon, we ran 2 hours and 59 minutes with a huge chair malfunction, which we have never, ever had in a marathon or any race at all of any distance before. I was pushing Shamus up a hill, and at mile 9, the chair just broke. Literally, the part that I push on just snapped.
Really?
So instead,
is this a chair you use? Do you use a different chair for every race, or use the same chair?
We've been using that chair since Shamus's surgery. So that was 2020. So we've been using that same chair for about 3.5, 4 years, and the chair just broke. Nothing that I could have ever anticipated. You anticipate maybe that you'll get a flat tire or something like that, but it was the chair just broke. At the time, I mean, it didn't even cross our minds that we were going to stop. It was, are we still going to be able to qualify for Boston with a broken chair? And
of course you are.
And we did. So for the 17 miles of that race, instead of pushing Shamus like I normally do, I was pushing him hunched over at the waist, basically at below his shoulder height on shards of metal.
Not even, oh my God.
Yeah, that it had been broken off. And Shamus wore the handlebars that I usually push on as a necklace for 17 miles.
That must have been comfortable.
It wasn't too bad.
So again, we ended up having really, other than the malfunction, we had a great day that day. We ran 2 hours and 59 minutes.
And what's qualifying?
It goes by age.
Okay.
So, and it's based on my age, whether I'm pushing or not pushing. It's the same qualifying standard. Yeah, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
So for my age, a 46-year-old man has to run under 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Okay.
So we were well under that, so we knew once we ran that time that we were pretty much guaranteed entry into Boston. And at the time, that was the fastest marathon that we'd ever run together.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And that goes back to when Shamus was a little guy. We've been running the Marine Corps Marathon for we ran it 7 consecutive years since 2015. So he was, littler and smaller, but fastest we were
The
was
fastest.
this
Well, you
year.
had a goal. You had a
Yeah.
real goal in mind,
We
right?
did,
Like you knew
yeah.
you had a chance. Seamus, were you excited to do Boston too? Like, is that was a goal of yours as well?
Yes. My dad has been telling me about Boston for as long as I can remember. And I couldn't wait until the day that I was able to run it. And then when it finally got there, it's very exciting.
That's awesome. How was the race? How was race day? Was it everything you had hoped it would be?
Definitely. Definitely.
I mean, I think the race itself exceeded expectations. Back to Sackett's Harbor, we had trained really, really hard. Leading into Boston, we never ran together because of the winter here in upstate New York. We just don't get Seamus out in the chair often in the winter. His body doesn't do great with super cold temperatures, and just rolling on the roads in his chair. It's just not conducive. So we didn't train together much at all. And I honestly didn't have as much time to train as I did in the summer. So
Well, you've got 2 high school kids,
right,
which is just a lot.
both looking at colleges and making college visits and, just life, full-time jobs and everything. So we went in really with the only expectation being to enjoy the race, like have fun.
Yep.
It was Seamus's first Boston. I've run it 6 times as an individual. Which
Okay.
is, he said I had told him about it. It's because I had run it as an individual when he was too small to remember.
Okay.
So for him to go back for the first time in 17 years, really, since he was there cheering me on as an infant.
As a baby. That's awesome.
So anyway, we went in with really low expectations. I kept saying to Seamus, it's a downhill start in Boston. I have to remind myself to go slow, because what happens in the Boston Marathon to anybody, let alone somebody pushing, is that you burn out your legs and those
And
downhill
then you got
miles.
that heartbreak hill.
And then you suffer in the uphill miles later in the race. So I kept trying to remind myself, the emotions are, they're going to get the best of you. You got to rein it in. You got to rein it in. And I told Seamus that he needed to remind me of that.
Was that your job during these races?
Yeah, it was. Like when we first started, I could feel him. We were going very fast. And I knew that he was letting the emotions take over.
Take the best, yeah.
And probably 3 or 4 miles in, I get a text from my mom saying, tell your dad to slow down. You guys are going 6-minute miles. Save something for heartbreak day. So I convey that message to him. And then he backs off. And we end up with a really good pace.
Yeah, so we, I think our first 5K was like 5:20 pace or 5:30 pace or something like that. Our first 10K was still under 6-minute pace. And our half marathon was 1 hour and 20 minutes, which I think is just about 6:10 pace. So we just kept maintaining. And as we got to the hills, I just kept reminding myself, I said, we're going to go easy on the uphills. And then I'll just let Seamus do the work on the downhill.
On the downhill?
And I'll just lean on him and extend my stride and let him pull me along. And really, that's how we ended up with such a successful day from a time standpoint. As far as meeting our goal of our expectation of having a good time, both of us smiled from start to finish, literally from start to finish.
Well, I feel like even in the pictures that I saw, because you had a little viral moment, I was seeing you guys and I was like, you couldn't help but feel like you felt your joy, and it just was so great, which is why I just wanted to start right with it. And it must also be a little special too, because Seamus is going to college in the fall, right? So not that you won't have time to do this, but life will be a little different. It was like a really great last hurrah. And I'm not saying it's the last hurrah, but
And all these milestones, anytime we run, like when we ran the Marine Corps Marathon together, I said we did it 7 times in a row. I thought that our last one was probably going to be our last one for a while because he'll be in college. Yeah.
In February, we had the chance to go down to Florida to see the Olympic marathon trials. It was for ASICS. So while we were there, we got to meet all the other ASICS ambassadors. One that I really connected with, his name is John Guevara. He and I got talking, and he said he really wanted to do a marathon. We came back home, I got his number, and we were texting. I said, John, I would really like to do the Marine Corps Marathon again this year. Would you be willing to push me? It could really be a really good experience for you, your first marathon, pushing someone too. So he texted me back within seconds, and he said, I would love to do that. I'm going to start training right away.
Oh, that's awesome. Will that be your first race without your dad?
My first marathon without my dad, yeah.
He's run a couple other shorter races. Like Nicole has pushed him in the Mother Love and Run. But an interesting thing about this guy, John, so he's an ASICS ambassador like Shamus and I are, but he's on the ASICS wrestling side. He's not ASICS running. He's ASICS wrestling. So he's not coming at it from a running background, but he hears us talking and he hears Shamus talking about being a marathoner, and it inspired him. He said, I think I'd like to do a marathon. And then Shamus said, well, why don't you push me? And so the rest is history.
So there's two things I want to say about this. One is, can you just tell the audience a little bit about the ASICS Ambassador Program for people who might not know? Yeah,
so Shamus and I were invited to be part of the program a year ago in January. So we've been ambassadors for just over a year. They invite us on as representatives of our not-for-profit. So the not-for-profit that we work with is Ainsley's Angels of America. We can talk a little more about that. But kind of the ASICS Ambassador Initiative is sound mind, sound body. Shay, do you want to talk a little bit about your perspective on sound mind, sound body, something that we,
Having a disability and being in a wheelchair, I rely more on my sound mind than sound body. I was talking about this with another ASICS ambassador, and he said it's never a 50-50 split. What you lack in one, you make up for in the other. I've really taken that to heart and remind myself of that every day.
I mean, actually, as you were saying that, and I was thinking that's how you were going to say it, it's so important for all of us, right? You know what I mean? And sometimes day to day even.
And I think even back to the Boston Marathon, my body wasn't as sound as it could have been or has been for almost every other marathon that I've run, but through the power of mind and chasing and following Shamus's smile that whole marathon, I mean, the power of the mind is incredible.
It's unbelievable.
And the things that it can help you to accomplish. And I think that our family has been a testament to that over the years of what can be possible with the right mindset. And so I think that's why we were asked to be ASICS ambassadors.
A place of yes is something that I have always said, like at Jake's Help from Heaven, like board meetings. And it was sort of, sometimes board members will like roll their eyes when I say it, because I'm like, no, we come from a place of yes. Because I like to approach things from like, it's not my job by any means to sort of say what someone needs, right? It's if they're coming at us for help, then our job is, as long as they've met our qualifications kind of and have done what we've asked, then yes, like we come from this place of yes. But for me, it became this mindset, right? Because it's so easy to go down that rabbit hole of like feeling sorry for yourself or being like, why me? Or it's not fair. And I still do that. So it's not like I don't do that. To the power of mind, right? Like you can shift the narrative. You can make the narrative whatever you want it to be. And I think you guys have certainly done that. So let's now talk like back in the beginning, so like A Place of Yes is technically a grief podcast because it's sort of based on these conversations about my loss and the loss of Jake. But I think of it so much more as sort of like hope and resilience. And so sometimes grief is the loss of a loved one, but sometimes grief is just wrapping your head around the life you thought you were going to have or kind of closing one door to open another, that kind of thing. Let's talk a little bit about how this all began. So, Shaun, I know you're a PT, and we just before this, I remembered that you were at Minor Improvements where Jake was. Can you go kind of from the beginning and when Shamus was born and when you started running?
Well, you talk about, shifting the narrative or the mindset. And so I came at it from a pediatric PT background. I was a pediatric PT. That was my dream job out of college. Again, before Shamus even came into our lives. And my wife was a special education teacher. We had lots of opportunities to interact with families, with children, with special needs, with disabilities. And so when Shamus was born, really to go into the history of it, I started noticing some neurological symptoms really right away. I would say within 2 weeks of his birth. Now, he was sent home from the hospital. There was no birth trauma like you often hear of with cerebral palsy. There was no cord wrapped around the
I was going to say, like, did you know right away or no?
No, I mean, as far as the hospital was concerned and the doctor was concerned, they were sending us home with a typically developing child. And we felt the same way. All his APGAR scores were normal. Everything was normal. Labor and delivery, everything went great. So we brought him home, and within the first 2 weeks, I started to notice things like he was holding his hands in fists, his thumbs were always tucked in. When I was giving him a bath and I would stretch his ankle, he would have ankle clonus, so his foot was kind of thumping.
So things you knew to look for, but like other parent might not.
Wouldn't necessarily recognize as an issue. So I took that to the doctor, his pediatrician, right away, and the pediatrician came back with, Shaun, you're just a guy who knows too much and you're a paranoid dad. He's going to outgrow this. I wanted him to be right. I wanted the doctor to be right, but I kind of, I knew.
You had that
deep
feeling.
Down that it was, this isn't normal development. Yeah. So Nicole and I talked about it and we just kind of, I guess, bided our time until Shamus finally got the diagnosis when he was about a year old, and he wasn't meeting his motor milestones. He qualified for early intervention services, and we saw a neurologist, and they diagnosed him with spastic diplegic cerebral palsy, which over the years has really shifted to a diagnosis of spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy, which means all four of his limbs are involved to some degree. Shamus used a walker for a long. He learned to walk with a walker when he was about 20 months old. He was about a little over 2 years old, I guess, because his younger brother and him started walking at the same time.
At the same time?
So yeah, Shamus maybe was actually closer to 3. But anyway, all that being said, Nicole and I, without ever really even talking about it, had the mindset of whatever Shamus wants to try, whatever he wants to participate in, whatever he wants to be involved in, whatever he wants to play, we'll figure out a way to do it. We're going to have to accommodate. We're going to have to adapt. We may have to modify some things, but we'll figure out a way to do that. And that's how we took on life from the beginning, really. Play dates. I was right there with him, carrying him around or jumping on bounce houses with him, whatever he wanted to do.
So he could experience it all.
We were out there doing it, yeah.
So I was well before I even knew Brian, before any sort of my current life was a thing. I was a special ed teacher in Boston for 10 years. I was always like a fierce advocate for my students, right? And then fast forward to when Jake got sick and I had to sort of be a fierce advocate for my son. And it was like next level, because when it's your kid, it's different. It's funny is not the right word, but it's sort of interesting how, like, you were a PT and she's a special ed teacher, and then you're totally, you can handle this. Like, you just got this, right? Like, and that's kind of what I felt like with Jake, because I was like, wait, I know how to advocate. I know how to use my voice. I know how to sit at IEP meetings. Like,
that was the biggest thing, was knowing how to navigate the system. And I think that's what's so hard for so many families is it's not easy.
Jake's Help from Heaven is about the, getting the equipment you need or travel reimbursement. But part of what we wanted to do too was help families know that you can advocate, and help families know what to advocate for, or just that it's okay to use your voice. It's okay to push back. It's okay to question doctors, like all those things. It's not that families love their kids any less than like you love Shamus or I love Jake or I love Ethan. Like, none of that. They love their kids the same. They just don't know that they can push back.
Right.
If you suspect something, push for it, right? Like, advocate. Yeah. And also the second piece of what I heard you saying that I just love, because I think we did this with Jake too, to some degree, was just you live your life. What was it like for you growing up? It's a weird question to ask because you only know what you know, but did you ever feel like you were missing out on something, or do you still feel like you're missing out on something? Or
with going to college, obviously there's some challenges that there wouldn't be if I didn't have disability. So I do think about that sometimes, and it can be a little bit frustrating because we don't always get the help that we need for my disability. So I definitely do think about that. But overall, no, I don't feel like I missed out on anything.
And I think about that. You mentioned the life you expected or whatever. No, it might not have been the life I thought of when I was 20 years old and envisioned myself with a family or whatever down the road. But holy cow, we have exceeded any expectation that I ever could have had. And I guess that, is the way that I shift my narrative. And that if we didn't have Shamus in our lives, I think about how many things that we would not have done. And people that he's introduced us to, or that we've crossed paths with because of Shamus, no doubt. Probably, in the time before he has memorable memories, Shamus and I would go out exploring and looking for critters, or he'd love to look at running water, so we'd go find streams and waterfalls and stuff when he was really little. Yeah, along the side of the road, and we'd stop and look. And a lot of times he would sleep when he was real small, but it's just evolved over the years to now we talk about. I'm talking to an adult.
It's wild when that happens when you're a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, he spends a lot of time in that running chair with me. Even during the course of a marathon, you've got 3 hours plus an hour before the race and an hour after the race till you can get to where his regular chair is. So there's a lot of time there, which to me, again, it's one of those blessing things that how many fathers get the opportunity to spend that much time
with their son,
with their child.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's such a gift, and it's not lost on me. And you talk about him going to college. One of the greatest days of my life was a couple months ago when Shamus said, "Hey, Dad, when I go to college, can we still run together?" Well, and yes.
You're I'm almost crying. You can see that. That's
as long as my legs will allow it, and as long as you want to keep doing it, Shamus wants to keep doing it, we will continue to run together, and we'll find times. And I think that we'll probably run Boston together next.
Do you want to?
Yes.
All right, so let's go back to this cross country run.
Sure. So I started.
This was your idea?
Yes.
I started to mention Shamus had outgrown his jogging chair. When he was, I was squeezing him in it way longer than I should have, but he was probably like I think he was 7 years old. And I realized that I just
You're
couldn't
like, I gotta do something.
safely do it anymore. So I reached out to Team Hoyt, who is, famous in the Boston area because the father-son duo ran the Boston Marathon, I think 37
I was gonna say
consecutive times. And they directed us to Ainsley's Angels. They got us a chair that could accommodate his growing size, his larger size, that we could still run races or still run together. And once Shamus got those new wheels, he asked if we could run a race together. He asked if he could participate rather than just cheer Dad on and run my training runs with me. He wanted to be in it. So I gave him a couple options. I showed him a list of some local races that were coming up, and he selected the Firecracker 4. So we ran that race in 2013.
I remember it being an extremely hot day. People were out there with their hoses.
For him, it was fun, and I remember him finishing that race just beaming. He was now part of the running community, not just Dad's training buddy. And it was neat to see that shift. And Shamus has always been someone who wants to participate, not just sit on the sideline and watch. Which was important to me. And the next race I happened to be signed up for was an ultra marathon, a timed event, a 6-hour ultra marathon where you run as far as you can in 6 hours. The unique thing about that ultra marathon was that it took place on a closed loop. So it was a cinder track, 0.355 mile track. So just a little bit longer than a high school track that ran around.
So you just loop that
all day
for
long
6 hours?
For 6 hours, and that was in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. So this was going to be my first ultra marathon. I had only the furthest distance I had run to that point was a marathon. And for anybody listening out there that doesn't know what an ultra marathon is, really it's anything longer than 26.2 miles.
I was going to ask because I thought that it was like 50 miles or something, but it's just
Not
anything.
necessarily,
Okay,
right?
So there's different formats.
So, but there were actually people there that day that just planned to run 10 miles and stop. They just, so you could do whatever you want.
Okay.
But my goal was to run the whole 6 hours or as close to it as I could. I didn't know what my body would do. But honestly, in the back of my mind, I was thinking that Shamus was going to get 3 laps in
and be like,
be
this is
bored
boring.
of running
Yeah, like a circle.
Right. So I checked in with him probably every 10 minutes or every lap even. How you doing? Do you want to keep going? And at the time he was reading Harry Potter, so he was busy.
Nice and thick, yeah.
But he was like telling me about the book as he ran, and he was getting irritated with me asking him.
You're like, stop, yeah.
Kept interrupting.
So I stopped asking, and 4.5 hours into the race, Nicole stepped in and said, Shamus, you need to use the bathroom. We need to stretch your legs a little bit, and you've got to eat some lunch. So Shamus relented, and he said, okay, Dad, I'll take a break, but you got to keep running.
You keep going.
Yeah, this was our goal. You're going to keep running. So Shamus took a 20-minute break, hopped back in.
20 minutes.
Yeah, it was quick.
That's awesome.
And we finished the 6 hours together. We ran over 45 miles, and we ended up winning the race because we ran further than anybody else that day. So we were the winners. So, wow, I'm busy patting myself on the back. And as soon as we get in the car on the ride home, Shamus says, Dad, that was really fun. How far could we go if we ran that far every single day for summer vacation? And so my wife, he was a first grader at the time.
Yeah.
Just finished first grade or whatever. So my wife and I helped him with the math. And we said, Shay, we could run over 3,000 miles if we did that for your whole 10 weeks of
vacation.
Of summer recess.
So this is how this came to be.
That's how the idea for Run Across America was.
Shamus.
Yeah.
I'm kind of speechless.
So he said 3,000 miles is a long ways. How far is 3,000 miles? As a 7-year-old, you can't really wrap your brain around what that means. So the real genesis of the Run Across America was we got home and we pulled out a map of the United States, knowing that it's about 3,000 miles from coast to coast, and said, Shamus, if we ran 3,000 miles, we could go all the way from this ocean, and we pointed to the Pacific, to this ocean and pointed to the Atlantic. Now, again, my wife and I are just using this as an exercise in math and geography.
Yeah. And just kind of like, this is a fun conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
But when we said that, it was like a little light bulb went off in Shamus's head, and he said, wow, we got to do that. We thought it was cool.
Yeah.
We weren't going to discount it by any means, but we weren't planning
it wasn't
on
like,
doing it.
Yeah. That is wild. Okay.
Yeah.
But you did it.
Well, yeah, and really the reason that we did it was because Shamus persisted. Because for the next 3 months, so that was August, maybe the next 4 months, Shamus was just asking about it. When can we run across America? When can we start planning our run across America? And honestly, at that point, Nicole and I, or at least me, were coming up with excuse after excuse and reason that we probably wasn't realistic. Shamus, I work full time. I don't know how I could possibly
Yeah,
get
like,
a
how am I
summer
gonna
off
do
to
this?
do that. I don't know if it's humanly or physically possible for us to do. It's going to cost a lot of money. We can't afford to do
Yeah, like,
it.
how are we gonna do?
Where are
Yeah.
we going to sleep? I mean,
Logistically, like, it's
logistic
so
after
much.
logistic excuse or reason we came back at him with, until I was tucking him in the night before Thanksgiving, 2013. I just finished his bedtime story and got him under the covers and was getting ready to leave his room. And he said, "Hey, Dad, when we run across America, can we donate chairs to kids like me so they can feel what it's like to go fast?"
Shamus.
And, yeah, I mean, for a 7-year-old kid to come up with something like that, he wanted to pay it forward, what we were
I love.
doing.
I mean, it's just everything about that is great, right?
Right. He's done more in his life than most of his friends have. He was horseback riding from the age of 3 and high ropes course at Double H and all, everything, anything he wanted to try. Again,
You figured out how to do it.
Yeah, he tried it, whether it was us or somebody else helping him. We did it, and I'm sure that's what gave him the confidence to say, "When can we run across America? And when we do, can we donate chairs to kids like me?" And so that's when I walked out of his room with a lump in my throat and went to
And you're like, what am I going to say?
and said, "We got to try." So I went into my boss the following Monday and said, "Okay, I'm going to give you 18 months notice. How about during the summer of 2015, I take off and we work towards Shamus's goal of running across America." And knowing Shamus and knowing our family, my boss was gracious in granting me that time off with 18 months notice. Time to plan for everybody.
For everybody. I feel so many people like don't think they can, so they don't try, right? But it's like I always say to like Ethan or something, like, you're better off trying and not, so what if you don't make the goal? Like, but try. Like, because if you don't try, guess what? You'll never get there. Like, you'll never do it, right?
And that was my mindset in agreeing to it. You know what I mean? I knew we'd be doing good work no matter what. Once Shamus decided to turn it into a philanthropic mission of wanting to gift mobility to kids, we were going to be doing good stuff no matter what.
No matter
whether we made it 100 miles or 3,000.
No.
It didn't matter at that point. It never felt like a job or a chore because I knew what the goal was.
Yeah.
And when you have a goal like that in your mind, it's easy to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. Well, and it's also like it's easier to get out of bed than to live with yourself for not doing it, right? So let's stop this for 1 second and talk about Ainsley's Angels.
Sure.
Can you talk about that organization? Because you're on the board, right?
I'm not on the board.
You're
but
not, okay.
I have now become an employee of Ainsley's Angels.
Oh, okay, okay.
Even starting in 2015, when we were doing the Run Across America, they brought me on as a vice president of education and advocacy to help spread the word and the mission of what Ainsley's Angels does. And what Ainsley's Angels is, it started as an athlete rider organization, pairing up athlete riders with runners, going out and participating in endurance events together, whether it be a triathlon or 5K or marathon or anything in between, or in our case, running across America, But really what it's evolved into over the years is just promoting inclusion without limits is kind of the new tagline, the new
I love it, yeah.
Yeah, inclusion without limits. Let's figure out a way to get people involved in whatever they want to do, whatever equipment that requires. We can help provide that equipment. Now I've kind of moved into a role of what they call the senior vice president of programs. So I do oversee the education component. What we're working on right now is our ally development program. So we're trying to create disability allies, people that can bring inclusion to their communities in whatever way they need it in their community, whether it's, adult-sized changing tables and restrooms or adapted playgrounds or whatever
it is.
Yeah, and so that's what we've been mentoring people
So it's a
through.
national organization.
Yeah, it's America, right? Okay. Yeah, so just America at this point. But yeah, and I think we're it flexes every now and then when ambassadors come on, but we're in 35 states and 70 cities across America at this point.
So you really partnered with them with this because this is how you were going to get the chairs,
that's,
right? Like, that was kind of like this whole, like the vision of it.
I mean, that was the great thing.
And what was Nicole's mindset on this?
Nicole has been the biggest supporter of everything. Not only the biggest cheerleader, but supporter and being part of that. And of course, when it involves her son, I think she, we all, except Shamus, were nervous about taking this endeavor on.
I just know that everything will work out. I mean, it might take some extra effort to get it done, but it'll all work out.
And there might be obstacles.
But what a great way to face life, right?
So as most people were saying, Shaun, you're crazy. This isn't smart. This isn't possible.
What are you thinking?
Yeah. Why are you even doing this? Again, it's all Shamus's idea, and I'm just trying to be a good dad. I don't know, what my excuse was, but
Well, no, it's things we do for our kids,
You
right?
got it. And we take that to the extreme.
You guys go next level for sure.
So I made a post like on social media at the time, and I said, here's Shamus's goal. We want to run across America, and there were a lot of responses to it. Some people said, oh, that's great. It's good luck and whatever. A lot of people were like, Shaun, this is crazy. But the president of Ainsley's Angels, Rooster, he goes by, reached out to me personally. We had his contact information because he had helped us. We only knew him on a cursory level. We hadn't communicated much other than I had sent him pictures from the Firecracker 4 of our finish.
Okay.
Yeah, and that we had done the ultra marathon together. He knew that. But he saw the post and he said, Shaun, let me get this right. You're going to use the chair that you got from Ainsley's Angels to push Shamus from Seattle to New York City. You want to donate some chairs along the way. And again, the next line out of most people's mouth was, you're crazy.
Nuts. Yeah.
Rooster said, we want in. What can we do to help? We want to be a part of this epic journey. From that day forward, actually, I just got goosebumps saying it because that's when I knew that we had a shot at this. And that's what happened. Ainsley's Angels actually purchased an RV on the West Coast, sight unseen for us, had it wrapped and everything. And that
was from them.
That became our home base for the Run Across America. So our objective for the RV was Nicole and my mom flew out and got it in Pasco, Washington. Drove it 5 hours to Seattle. Okay. The boys and I flew out on July 1st, met them, and they had it all set up for us and everything. And then the goal was drive that back home, and Ainsley's Angels would take possession of it in Virginia Beach.
Okay, and that's where you ended?
We ended in New York City.
Okay.
They met us there. And then we went down to Virginia Beach after we ran across America. We all went down there together and ran the Rock and Roll Half Marathon with them.
I was going to say, did you run to Virginia Beach?
No, we saved our legs for a little bit. But so the Ainsley's Angels RV became our headquarters.
So how old were you, Shamus, when this happened? So you were 10?
I was 7 when I came up with the idea, and then I was 9 when we
9.
actually did the run.
Yep.
So Simon was...
He was 7 when we ran across. Yeah.
So not to dwell on this, but there's so much about this because I feel like all I say with you guys is wow. Like, wow. Like, what was like a day in the life? Like, what was the routine? Yeah. And either of you can answer this because or maybe both of you, because I would love the perspective of both of you.
Yeah.
We would wake up. My mom would make my dad a power smoothie with like avocado, coconut oil, peanut butter, all the fats. He would eat that for breakfast. Then I would hop in the chair. We would go out for a run, and we decided early on that it'd be best if we went 5-mile increments. So if I needed water, bathroom break, snack, whatever, the RV would be close by. We could do a check-in. I could get out if I needed to.
Which shows how committed Nicole was, because it's not like she was just driving,
and getting somewhere and
setting up camp.
Yeah.
She was with us like every step of the way. And I didn't really want to disrupt the family schedule or make it miserable. So we woke up. It was not like we were starting at 5 a.m. We were starting at like 7 or 7:30, regular time for the boys so they could kind of enjoy it. And then we'd be on the road for anywhere between 8 to 10 to 12 hours, depending on the terrain and the distance of the day. But again,
and I mean, when you hit some of Midwest in July, you got high temperatures.
We landed in Seattle, and it was record high temperatures. It was like 105 degrees in Seattle. There were days where it would rain after we finished running. There was a big hailstorm when we ran through Mount Rushmore. Mm-hmm. It actually rained that day, but it was after we had finished running for the day.
So you ran every day. Were there any off days?
Zero off days.
Zero off days.
Part of the reason for that was originally we had planned 70 days. We would take it right from, the end of school till Labor Day. So we could stretch it out a little bit.
And see things.
And it ended up, Shamus wanted to go to Double H. And then the New York Mets reached out to us, and they had found out about what we were doing, and they wanted to recognize us at a home game.
Are you Mets fans? Now you are? Yeah.
Not only did they welcomed us to the stadium. They said, Shaun, how many tickets do you want to the game to invite family and friends to? So I think they gave us like 250 tickets.
250, wow.
So everybody from my work, they got a bus and came down and cheered us on.
Great.
Ainsley's Angels, people from across the country came and were at the game. They recognized us on the field before the game.
How was that?
It was a lot of fun. My best friend came down, and when we finished, he was holding a sign that said, My best friend just ran across America.
Oh my God.
It's like the best picture
Yep,
of
and,
him holding that sign as Seamus is rolling in.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh God, guys.
Over the summer, we usually hang out, watch a movie or have sleepover or something. But that summer we couldn't because we were away. But
But he was there to greet us.
it was
That's incredible.
So good to see him.
And
again.
his best buddy, that family really are Mets fans, so they got to come.
So they were
out.
excited. That's awesome.
So Double H shortened it on the front end. Again, Double H
Awesome.
Seamus wasn't going to miss that.
Yep.
We'd never want him to miss that. And at the back end, their homestand ended on September 1st.
Okay, so you
So
had to.
we couldn't stretch it out to Labor Day. So we ended on September 1st. And then that actually allowed us to go down and run the half marathon with Ainsley's Angels in Virginia Beach Labor Day weekend.
So what was the mile range?
Well, the shortest we ran was actually the last day because we had actually gotten a little bit ahead. So the last day we ran like a ceremonial 5K. So in 59 days, we ran 3,200 miles. The average, if you broke it up, was 56 miles per day. I think the longest we ran was just over 70 miles, and that was because of a mistake that I made in calculating where the campground was. And we finished the summer, and so many people are like, Shaun, you got to write a book about
absolutely.
this. So that's what we ended up doing, and all those stories about the snafus and like my miscalculation. Like we had planned the logistics so well. I forgot that one day I had planned that we would drive the RV back to the starting point, and that we would drive by the campground we were staying at. We ran the whole way to the campground and added like an extra 20 miles that day. Like silly, but you
But you're just
mindset. And maybe I wasn't thinking as clearly as I could have or should have.
Washington, Idaho. We wake up. It's a great day because we're presenting a chair live on the local news. It's really exciting. So we do that. That gives us, delays us about an hour for the day. We start running, and then we realize, we have a interview that day. That we're supposed to meet them on the road, but because of our delayed start, we couldn't quite get there in time. So they come back and meet us about halfway to where we were going to. My dad and I weren't there yet. They were with my mom and brother in the RV. So they bring their camera and stuff into the RV to get out of the sun. And
in the heat, it was another one of those hot days.
Crazy hot day. And while they're in the RV, one of their camera bags hits the propane stove, and there's a gas leak. So my mom realizes right away, but there is gas in the RV. So she opens up the windows, clears. Unfortunately, she gets a huge migraine. It just was kind of not hard for her to drive, but she was not like super focused.
Yeah.
So my dad and I finally get there, and we do our interview. It went really well. I'm getting a little bit tired. I was in the chair for a while. So I go in, and my brother says, can I get in the chair and have a turn? So I say, of course, that'd be great. So I go in with my mom. My dad and brother get on in the chair.
Here, let me step in here. So this is the one time. So Seamus is with Nicole, and Simon would periodically get in the chair just so we could have some time together, too, and Seamus could have time with Mom, and we split it evenly as much as we could. It's the one time, probably the whole summer, that I forgot my cell phone. But I said to Simon, I'm like, we don't really need to go back for it because we're on a bike path.
4 miles on a bike.
Yeah, you're like, we're going out
it
back.
was literally like 4 miles on a bike path to where we were going to meet the RV again.
They set off, and we drive to the next checkpoint.
They're expecting us in like a half hour.
Hour, 20 minutes later, still not back yet.
So,
I mean, you can do 4 miles and
Yeah.
pretty quick.
Yeah.
But and Nicole is
So
panicking.
my mom is calling him, and then we hear the buzz.
because he doesn't have his
He
phone.
doesn't have his phone. We freak out even more.
See, I missed that part because I'm freaking out on the road with Simon because we're
They're
actually lost, but
But-
we took the wrong. But there were two.
But it like veered and
right,
yeah.
and we took the wrong path. So
And it's the one time you don't have your phone.
right,
Yeah.
we figured it out. I figured out we were going the wrong way after we had run for like a half hour in the wrong direction. I'm like, we should have been there by now. Even if I
Yeah.
miscalculated by a mile or whatever. We came upon this kid, like this 10-year-old kid riding his bike, and I said, "Is this the Centennial Trail? We need to be on the Centennial Trail."
And
He's
he's
like, no, but I'll take you there.
That's awesome.
So he led us. We ended up meeting up with the RV eventually, way behind schedule now. Go ahead, Shay. I'll let you continue.
So because of all the excitement, we didn't know where they were. We were really stressed, and I didn't eat lunch. So they get back to the RV, and I say, oh, well, I'm really hungry. I haven't eaten anything yet. So my brother goes, I'm going to make you a sandwich.
Little 7-year-old Simon wants to help
7-year-old
out.
Simon.
And Nicole was tired, and I was tired, so
Yeah.
we thought, okay.
You're like, okay.
It's a sandwich. Like, what?
What could go wrong? Again, I sense the theme of day 6.
So he gets the ingredients, turkey, cheese, bread, brings it over to the dashboard, lays it all out, starts cutting, gets a bigger knife than he should have, goes to cut the cheese, and slices right through his thumb.
Stop it.
So he's bleeding all over, starts to throw up, his head is going crazy, and
Then he passes out.
Oh, stop.
We get him bandaged up. Probably should have gotten stitches.
And I had a list of all the hospitals that
Like
we would
along
be
the path. Yeah,
nearby,
yeah.
Just because for myself.
You're thinking more. Yeah.
He passed out again after we got him all stitched up. Laid in the back bed for a good hour and a half.
There's one part that Shamus left out, and it's a brief addition to the chaos of the day. So this is the end of the day when Simon was getting ready to make the sandwich and stuff, but we pulled into the campground, and it was closed. And I'm not talking just closed for the day. It was closed
Like,
permanently. So Nicole and I were scrambling to find a
Like, where
new
are we gonna
place.
go?
Yeah, like at the last, like literally.
Literally.
It was like 6:00 at night, but it was added to it, and that's when Simon started to make the sandwich at that new campground.
Because you're all.
We rest for a little bit, and then later that night, someone is hosting a party for us.
Like a barbecue.
That'll be so nice from this stressful day. We're driving to the barbecue. Then we hear this crack. The vents that we opened earlier for the gas leak were still open.
Oh.
And a low-hanging branch
And shattered him.
swept them clean off.
I don't even know what to say.
So that was.
This is
that
one
was the
day.
crux of the day.
One day.
So, I mean, I guess all you can say is day 7 had to be better.
Well, one of the fun things. So the barbecue went well. We ended up going to a water park after that.
Yeah,
The boys had a blast.
Okay.
So there were some good things. But then we get back to the campground. Late at night, kind of sitting around the table before we turned Shamus's table into his bed.
But I know you'd tuck them all, yeah.
Right. And we were sitting around, and I was just kind of lamenting about everything that day. The late start and slow and getting lost and forgetting
All
about
the-
everything, that we just talked about. But Shamus goes, yeah, but Dad, you got to see a buddy from high school that you haven't seen in 25 years. And he was right, because along the way, and one of the reasons that we were going slower was because we met up with this friend that was just recently stationed there in the military.
Wow.
And he ran a few miles with us. And he goes, we got to donate a chair live on TV. And he goes, we crossed our first state line. And so as I'm lamenting about all those things that we
That
just
went
talked
wrong.
about that went wrong, all Shamus was focusing on was, Dad, we're in a new state. We're in Idaho now.
That is such a testament to, I'm bringing it back now to what you had talked about with the sound mind and sound body. Because even at 9, did we say, yeah, 9 years old, I know many adults that would not be able to see the world in that way at all, right? Like, who would not be able to take any of that and at the end of the day be like, but hey, these are all the great things we've done. It's almost more impressive than you running 50 miles a day for all those days. I mean, it's really remarkable.
100%. And really, so that was day 6. That became our mindset for the rest of the summer. We're going to look for the positive. You know what? Because there's going to be things that happen along the way. There's going to be construction. There's going to be slowdowns. There's going to be injuries.
I'm sure with you, there's going to be days that just hurt and you don't want to run.
There's going to be things. We're going to focus on the positive, thanks to Shamus, and that's what we did for the next 54 days. And it went by in the blink of an eye. I was sad to see it end. Simon was sobbing at the finish because even though he missed home, he didn't want this summer to end.
No one will ever take that from you. Like those memories, like when you have a family of your own, those memories are going nowhere. Like they will always, it's so incredible.
And I think about that summer often. I miss it, but I think about that summer often, and I think about all the memories and the time on the road for the boys to see the country that way. But some of my most favorite memories are sitting around the table playing Uno, playing games and having dinner and
just being together. It's so remarkable. I mean, sitting with you two is like on 2 different levels, right? Because physically what you do in the way that you make his dreams come true, right? Like you say it and you make it happen. And that's it's parenting, but it's like next level and it's awesome. And then Shamus, I want to talk to you a little bit because I do think you're so impressive, right? Like, and I'm not just saying that because you're here as a guest on my show. Like, I'm so impressed by you. And I've been impressed by your story and your journey, but having this conversation with you and just, I'm sitting here thinking that the world needs more people like you, right? The world needs A, your optimism, and B, your role. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I feel like you are this person that is going to change people, that is going to make them better. You are not defined by your disability. You're just who you are. I always get so protective, right? Like I would get so protective with Jake when people would make these assumptions. And Jake had a lot of challenges. Like he couldn't speak. Like there was a lot, but I would always get like super mama bear, right? Like don't judge my kid. And I just feel like I'm like protective of you because I don't want people to judge you. Do you encounter that at all? Like, and I'm sure you handle it with grace because just the way you speak, but.
We live in Galway. It's a very small community. My graduating class is 46.
Wow.
Everyone knows me. Everyone knows what I've done. Everyone knows what I'm going to do. At home, I don't really encounter that. But there are some times where we're out in public and, someone says to my mom, "Oh, what happened to him?" I hear that.
Yeah.
I can answer that. Ask me. But my mom says he was born with CP, but he's done so much with his life. I don't know.
Does it make you mad?
A little bit. I try to understand where they're coming from. They might not have had these interactions with people with disabilities before. It is a little bit frustrating. But when my mom says that, it is nice to hear her say that. And I think they understand that I am more than what they see, and they should not make assumptions about people with disabilities.
Absolutely. And I think it puts a lot of pressure, on you, and it shouldn't be on you. But I do think that the more people are exposed and the more, because I always try to think that people don't mean to be jerks, right? They don't mean to say the wrong thing. They still do.
They do.
Yeah, they still do. It's not making an excuse for them, but I always try to think of intent, right? Like their intent is probably not to hurt your feelings and be mean. Doesn't make it not hurt your feelings and be mean, but it's a big burden on you, but you are making people understand things more. Right. Just because I'm in a wheelchair does not mean I'm not going to college. And you told me what you're studying.
Yes.
You're in the honors college, so let's talk a little bit about that.
So I'm attending UAlbany in the fall with a planned major of electrical and computer engineering.
Beyond impressive. I mean, it's just congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on getting in the honors college. And congratulations on making a difference. So your book, you referenced this before. It's called Better Together, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of anything like a more better name for not only your journey, but just actually life, right?
Oh, and that's, what I've really come to realize is that it's so much more rewarding. Life in general is so much more rewarding when we have people to share it with. Yep. And it's so much more special. Everything that we've done, everything that Shamus has propelled our family to do, it's better together.
I want to thank you guys so much for being here. I knew this was going to be a great conversation. I want to thank you both for being here. I want to thank you, Shamus, for participating so much in this. I loved having you.
Thank you.
Shaun, it was great to see you. It was great to hear about your stories. Thank you for what you're doing in the world. Thank you for what you're putting out there. I love it. I appreciate it.
Thanks for helping us to share our story. We appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to A Place of Yes. Please follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave us a thumbs up, or leave us a comment. We would appreciate all that you can do. If you really like this episode, please share it with a friend or two. For more information and to leave us any feedback, please reach out to us at jakeshelpfromheaven.org.